Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. The ground beneath your feet feels solid, right? A dependable foundation for everything we build. But what if I told you that in many parts of the world this foundation is quietly giving way? That entire cities are sinking? Not in some distant future, but right now. This creeping geologic hazard is known as land subsidence, and a new study estimates that by 2040, it could directly impact 19% of the entire global population. This is the alarming reality of a slow-motion disaster unfolding right under our noses, a crisis of our own making. So how can solid ground just sink? To understand, we need to journey deep into the earth to the world of aquifers. These aren't vast underground lakes, but rather layers of rock, sand, and gravel, whose porous spaces are saturated with fresh water. This groundwater is a critical resource, supplying drinking water for nearly half the world's population. Think of an aquifer system like a giant, water-filled sponge. The water held within the tiny spaces between sediment particles exerts an upward pressure, helping to support the immense weight of the overlying land. But for decades, we've been pumping this groundwater out at a rate much faster than it can be naturally replenished by rainfall. This is a condition known as groundwater overdraft. The U.S. Geological Survey likens it to a bank account. If your withdrawals consistently exceed your deposits, the account will eventually be empty. As the water level in an aquifer drops, so does that internal supportive pressure. The weight of the overlying earth, which was once partially held up by the water, now bears down with its full force on the sediment skeleton of the aquifer. In aquifers made of fine-grained materials like silts and clays, this increased stress causes the particles to compress and compact. This compaction is the crucial and devastating part of the process, because it's largely irreversible. Once those pore spaces collapse, they cannot be reinflated. The aquifer's ability to store water in the future is permanently reduced, and the direct consequence of this underground compaction is the sinking of the land surface above it. So what's fueling this relentless extraction, this insatiable thirst for groundwater? The primary driver is modern agriculture. Farming is the single largest consumer of global freshwater, accounting for approximately 70% of withdrawals worldwide. In many of the world's most productive agricultural regions, from California's Central Valley to the plains of India, groundwater is the lifeblood of farming, especially for water-intensive crops. This dependence creates a vicious cycle. During droughts, when surface water from rivers is scarce, reliance on groundwater skyrockets. In California, for example, groundwater can jump from providing 40% of the state's water in a normal year to 60% during a dry period. More drought means more pumping, which depletes aquifers, which accelerates subsidence. The second major driver is urban and industrial growth. The world's rapidly expanding cities place immense pressure on water resources. Many megacities rely heavily on groundwater to supply the daily needs of millions of residents for drinking, sanitation, and manufacturing. Finally, climate change acts as a threat multiplier. More frequent and intense droughts, as we've already mentioned, force a greater reliance on underground reserves. At the same time, changing rainfall patterns can disrupt the natural recharge of aquifers, meaning less water is seeping back into the ground to replenish what we take out. It's a perfect storm for aquifer depletion and land subsidence. The silent creep of subsidence is a global phenomenon, and the consequences are devastating, inflicting massive economic damage and posing severe risks to communities. Let's take a tour of some of the global hotspots. Perhaps the most dramatic and terrifying example is Jakarta, Indonesia. The capital is the fastest sinking city in the world. With nearly 40% of the city already below sea level, some areas have sunk by more than 2.5 meters in the last decade alone. To put that in perspective, that's over 8 feet. The worst hit parts are dropping by as much as 25 centimeters a year. That's almost 10 inches in a single year. The primary cause is the uncontrolled extraction of groundwater by residents and industries. because reliable piped water is often unavailable or too expensive. For residents, it's a daily battle, with more frequent and severe flooding. The water stains on the living room walls of one resident's home rose by several inches each year, a tangible marker of the city's descent. The crisis is so dire that the Indonesian government has initiated a multi-billion-dollar plan to relocate the nation's capital entirely to the island of Borneo. Now let's travel to Mexico City. Built on the soft, waterlogged sediments of an ancient lakebed, the city has a long history of sinking. Relentless groundwater extraction to supply its massive population of over 20 million people has caused the city to sink at rates approaching a staggering 50 centimeters per year in some areas. That's over 1.5 feet. This sinking is causing widespread and costly damage to buildings, historical sites, and critical infrastructure. The uneven nature of the subsidence, called differential settlement, cracks building foundations, warps streets into undulating landscapes, and breaks underground water and sewage pipes. This breakage paradoxically worsens the city's water scarcity problems by causing massive leaks in the distribution system. Over in the United States, California's San Joaquin Valley, an agricultural heartland, has been called the site of the single largest human alteration of the Earth's surface topography. Decades of intensive groundwater pumping for agriculture have caused vast swaths of the valley to sink. During recent droughts, some areas have dropped by as much as 1 foot per year. This has inflicted billions of dollars in damage to the very infrastructure designed to manage water. Canals that deliver surface water via gravity have lost significant capacity because their gradients are disrupted. In some cases, the water would now have to flow uphill. Bridges have sunk so low that they obstruct water flow in the canals beneath them, and the capacity of flood control channels has been so severely impacted that the risk of catastrophic flooding has dramatically increased. Even the famous sinking city of Venice, Italy, tells part of this story. While its sinking is due to a combination of natural soil compaction and historical groundwater pumping, which was thankfully halted in the 1970s, it remains exceptionally vulnerable. The past subsidence, combined with modern sea level rise, has increased the frequency of acqua alta, or high water events, which flood iconic sites like St. Mark's Square and cause immense damage to irreplaceable cultural heritage. The problem is truly global. Cities in Iran are sinking so fast that priceless historical sites like those in Isfahan and Persepolis are threatened. In China, 45% of its major cities are sinking, potentially affecting nearly 30% of the country's urban population. A recent study found 28 of the most populous cities in the United States, including coastal and inland hubs like New York, Chicago, and Houston, are sinking, threatening infrastructure and millions of residents. The economic costs are monumental, running into billions of dollars annually for repairs to buildings, roads, bridges, and pipes, not to mention the immense costs of enhanced flood defenses. In the Netherlands, damage from subsiding peat soils is projected to reach €22 billion by 2050. How do we even watch the world sink? Detecting a phenomenon that can be both slow and spread over vast areas requires sophisticated technology. The star of the show is a satellite-based remote sensing technique called Interferometric Synthetic Aperture Radar, or InSAR. It's a mouthful, but it's incredible. Satellites bounce radar signals off the Earth's surface and record the returning waves. By comparing images of the same area taken at different times, scientists can create maps called interferograms that reveal changes in the land surface elevation with millimeter-level precision over thousands of square kilometers. This gives a comprehensive picture of subsidence hotspots. Scientists combine these broad maps with highly accurate, ground-based GPS stations, which provide a constant stream of data on movement at specific points. This combination gives us a highly accurate and detailed understanding of when, where, and how fast the land is sinking, which is indispensable for any kind of planning or mitigation. While this picture is alarming, The sinking of our land is not an unsolvable problem. The key lies in managing the root cause: groundwater overdraft. Several strategies have proven effective in slowing, and in some cases, even reversing land subsidence. The most direct method is to simply pump less water. Tokyo is the prime example. The city faced severe subsidence, sinking nearly 24 centimeters in 1 year. But starting in the 1960s, the Tokyo metropolitan government implemented strict regulations on groundwater pumping and invested in transitioning to alternative surface water sources. As a result, groundwater levels began to recover, and within about a decade, the subsidence had completely stopped. It's a stunning success story. Another innovative strategy is called Managed Aquifer Recharge, or MAR. Instead of letting precious rainwater run off into the sea, it is actively captured and directed back underground, using methods like infiltration ponds or injection wells. MAR does two things. It shores up water supplies for the future, and it helps restore the underground pressure that supports the land. This approach has been a key part of the success story in California's Coachella Valley. A proactive water district used imported Colorado River water to recharge the aquifer, which not only slowed subsidence rates by 50 to 75%, but even caused some land uplift in certain areas. Of course, long-term solutions require a holistic approach to water management. This includes investing in water conservation, improving the efficiency of agricultural irrigation through things like drip irrigation, and recycling wastewater. In California, the landmark Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014 represents a major step forward. It mandates that local agencies develop and implement plans to eliminate groundwater overdraft and bring their water basins into balance, with the specific goal of avoiding problems like land subsidence. It represents a critical shift from unregulated pumping to a framework for local, sustainable management. The slow sinking of our cities and farmlands is a profound warning. It reveals the hidden cost of our unsustainable consumption of a finite resource and highlights the intricate connection between our actions and the geological stability of our planet. The damage already done, cracked canals, flooded neighborhoods, and permanently diminished water storage, is a heavy price to pay. Yet, the success stories from places like Tokyo and the Coachella Valley show that this downward spiral is not inevitable. Through a combination of scientific monitoring, innovative engineering, and, most importantly, courageous policy and responsible water management, we can halt the descent. We have the knowledge and the tools to transition from a paradigm of overdraft to one of sustainability. The choice before us is whether we will act with the foresight and resolve necessary to secure the very ground on which our future is built.